not a shooter out there who can't find a setting in this that will work for them. I really believe that. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Anderson, Target Archery Marketing Manager here at Hoyt. I'm sitting here with Brian Gold, Product Engineering Manager, and a guy who's shot a bow a few times, Jesse Broadwater. We're super excited to bring the 2023 Hoyt Stratos line to the market. We've had a lot of time with it ourselves, and we want to take a little opportunity just to dive deep into it and have a conversation about everything within this bow. We've shown you some of the early launch videos, you've seen some product specs, but this is our opportunity to really tell the story of the bow, and super excited to do it. Jesse spent quite a bit of time with this bow in prototype stage. Brian's our chief engineer, and I'm going to let these two run with everything there is to know about the design of this Hoyt Stratos. Brian, what do you think? Where do we start?
I guess from a standpoint of where product starts, it's just in concept, right? So Stratos is replacing Invicta. So our team's focus, I guess a primary focus would have been take the positive attributes and changes that we've plugged into Invicta, because that product really represents like the biggest departure in Hoyt product from a target side in probably 20 years. We've always, the XT2000, 3000, 3500 limb was around for a significant period of time. We'd had some version of a spiral cam and then cam and a half system in two different series of cams. We maintained some of those aspects in that product line, but the advancements we made in Invicta were significant from a shot experience standpoint.
I remember we were at the end of Prevail, which was 2019. Yeah, 2018, whatever year. I think we all got lost on the years after 2020, but we were at the end of Prevail and we were talking what's next, and we had a group of shooters having a brainstorm session about it. And I remember one of the things that came out of that was, if a lot of these bows, the difference in them is what is spanning the same limbs and the same cams year over year. And they've been successful, so there was never really anything wrong with that, but we wanted to see a bigger departure into new design style, and Invicta delivered that, that's for sure.
Yep. The biggest change there was just in shot experience. The update to 13-inch hybrid limbs gave us a much smoother shot sequence and shot cycle. Much less feedback, much more enjoyable to shoot regardless of the cam system that you're in. So one of our main focuses was to maintain those performance benefits, but also incorporate some new design features. And so, kind of the same conversations that we had when we went with Invicta. We went to our staff, we went to our internal guys that shoot. We've got a pretty solid group of employees within our walls here that put a lot of arrows through a bow. And some of the things that came out of that were related to bow balance, mass distribution, bow geometry, right? Should we, for reflex versus deflex, is a neutral riser better? Is there a better way to distribute mass in order to get the bow to hold better? Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, there's not too many pro archers that would tell you that there's any one feature that's more important to how a bow is going to score on the line than getting it to hold well.
If you can't aim it, it's pretty hard to shoot it generally. Jesse, you ever win Vegas when you're aiming bad?
Well, it's always a toss-up of how you're aiming if you get in the shoot-off there. But no, I'll tell you, I'm super excited about these new bows. I'm coming off of, I shot the Invicta for a year, and awesome bow, nothing wrong with it. But prior to that, I was shooting the Podium. Huge change from the Podium to Invicta. So, and then just going off of what this new bow feels like, both models of it, I only see positive changes. We went a little bit more the direction that I would like to see a target bow go. I know we've talked about this a lot, and this guy's awesome about listening, and that's what I love about Hoyt and the engineering department here. To me, a target bow has to be forgiving, has to aim well. The whole experience about shooting target and shooting at Vegas is how well are you aiming? If you can't hold the bow well, just like you said, it's going to be not the greatest experience. So I feel like a more deflex riser is generally a more well aiming bow. So that along with a lot of the other features, we've got a new cam and everything with this new bow. It just builds off that Invicta platform, and it's super solid, and I am very excited about it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, forgive me if I accidentally refer to Stratos as Invicta. It happens every time
Yeah.
a new bow comes out. I think I still call some of them the Prevail, just because I won a lot with that one, so I'm partial.
Yeah.
So this Stratos, we've got a 36, so Stratos 36 and Stratos 40. In the past, we've always been, Prevail 37, Invicta 37. We tend to be around that 37-inch axle-to-axle version. Brian, what shifted this to a shorter 36-inch axle-to-axle versus what we'd had the last few generations?
For this, in this particular case, a lot of this was just based around geometry. So Jesse mentioned that he had some requests looking at a deflex or a more neutral riser, shifting CG kind of behind your hand to change the balance point of the bow. There's some ideas around the fact that you can run more forward, run more front stabilizer weight. And so the way that we achieve that on Stratos, we have implemented some of that feedback because other Pro Staff members have mentioned the same thing. There are a lot of guys who go back to a Pro Elite and describe it as one of their favorite bows, and that's one of the most neutral riser designs that we've ever had in the line.
That was your bow, right? I mean, you shot Pro Elite for...
Yeah, I had won Vegas the first time with that bow, yep.
And Pro Elite lasted... I mean, if you go back to, like we said, we go back like 20 years to when Cam and a Half came in. I think the first bows were Ultra Techs. There's Ultra Tech and Pro Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ultra Elite and Pro Elite were the first one. That was like 2006 maybe? 2005 even?
Yeah.
Where the shoot-through riser became part of it. And that was the Pro Elite,
Mm-hmm.
Ultra Elite. That Elite designation signified the shoot-through riser. But anyhow, those ran for a while. I mean, Ultra Elite, Pro Elite was a combination till about 2010.
2010.
Then we went to the Contender Elite.
Yeah.
And it kind of went somewhere between the two. But
Yeah.
Pro Elite had that more neutral riser. And then I'd say like Vantage Elite was a little more neutral as well. Vantage Elite Plus followed that.
Yeah.
So it was, just kind of how it was. But
Some of that's followed just industry trends as we've tried to look for performance benefits. Then brace heights have gotten shorter. Cam designs have adjusted what geometry the bow actually builds in a brace height condition, stored energy, velocity. I mean, there's a balance in any of those aspects, and so that's part of the reason you've seen the vast majority of the industry go to a little more reflex design. For us this year, we moved from a 13-inch limb on Invicta. We transitioned to a 12-inch limb on Stratos, and what that allowed us to do was basically move the pocket ends of the bow back to maintain the same brace height condition.
so that's where the neutral riser. When we say neutral riser, we're talking pivot point of the grip, where your hand would actually go in the grip in relation to the pivot point of the limb pocket. So now on Prevail, your hand sat here, and the pivot point of the limb pocket was in front, and now it's more sitting right directly over the top, and that gives us that neutral riser designation.
Right.
So the shorter limbs,
They
brought
changed
the geometry, brace height, and all that back.
They changed the geometry, and so we kind of put a stick in the mud and said we want to maintain, when we go into this next bow, we want to carry the SVX feel. We want to make sure that stays in the bow line, and we want to try our best to maintain the same draw length distribution across the whole range. So a 32-inch max draw length is what we were offering in SVX cams last year. So when we went to go design the new bow, we ensured that those same draw length matchups happened.
And that's where your geometry comes into play. You've got to hit a certain
axle to axle brace height to match with a draw length. So we started with a 40 first. Those draw lengths all match up exactly the same. In order to have that same shift happen between Invicta 37 and Stratos, we needed to make that bow geometry just a little bit shorter. So you'll see that in the specs, you're moving from a 37 to a 36, but that does allow the full draw range to have the same crossover points. So if you're coming from an Invicta 37, you're gonna have the same feel and same mod position as you will in a Stratos 36, and then the same goes for Invicta 40 versus Stratos 40. But most of that is just baked into that limb geometry, and that 12-inch limb versus 13 and how they build the draw links.
So you said a little bit ago that this shifted the riser CG, center of gravity. Go into detail. What does that mean? What does that mean for me as a shooter? What am I going to notice? Does that change how I stabilize the bow? Does it change how the bow is going to feel in my hand? What am I going to see?
Yeah, I think a couple things there. When Jesse made mention about deflex or neutral riser, we've had other feedback occasionally come in and say, hey, let's move back to an 8-inch brace height bow. I like the feel of those, some of those old bows with longer limbs and straighter risers. And I think across the board, what archers were really looking for, a couple things, one was feedback from a bow that doesn't have as much forward, a more forward CG. That bow tends to match up a little more geometry-wise with a hunting bow. Our hunting bows, we target really smooth shot experiences, very neutral. But from a bow shot standpoint, we don't want them moving to the target. We want them dead in hand and as quiet as possible. For a target bow, we're looking for a little more feedback from shot to shot. So if you're going to execute one and you get a little dirty, you get a little long, and you fire one with a little lower palm side pressure and instead of higher in your hand, if you've got a bow that doesn't really react and move, it's hard to tell exactly if that was you or if that was the bow when you get an impact point or a difference in impact.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, like this, why don't you share your experience shooting the bow? I'll talk about mine, what he's talking about with that feedback.
Yeah. And when we say feedback, like it's not like the bow has a lot of feedback or whatever. It's just, to me, it's like the perfect amount of like positive motion or feedback, whatever you want to call it. Like when you fire the shot, it is just a positive feel. With the Invicta, just the way that the limbs kind of curled, a little bit more, and it was more of an up and down rather than a, forward towards the target type of momentum. It had a great feel to it, and that's what, like you said, over the years, that was one of the things that kind of separated Invicta from the previous bows, was just that shot experience. Not a bad feel at all, but if you shoot the two, the new Stratos and the Invicta side by side, you notice it right away. It's almost one of those things to where you just have to shoot them side by side and see and feel the difference. But for me, like, that was the first thing I noticed, was just when I shot it, it just had a good feel to it. Not a lot of residual vibration, none of that. It just, a quick little pop straight towards the target, boom, you're done. And you knew the instant you shot it, like where that shot was going to be, how you shot it, and you can evaluate your shot like a lot quicker with these bows than I feel like I could with the Invicta. So just the whole shot experience was like, that was the first thing I noticed with it. And then of course, the balance with the center of gravity, that's one thing I've been pushing for years. And it's always, is it speed versus deflex and brace height, and it's always a battle, because you don't want to lose too much speed when you start going with, more deflex and brace height. But we was able to maintain that with a pretty awesome riser design, and the shooter experience is like pretty awesome.
The first time I caught one loose, it was actually Zach's bow, our company president, and he's almost my draw length. I went and picked it up, shot it, and it reminded me of my favorite Hoyt bows of old, but it still retained that nice feel that Invicta gives you. You didn't feel like, you go back 20, 30 years and those target bows are like bang, they go off.
Rattled.
I remember sights getting shaken loose, and then when Invicta hit, a lot of that, that was gone. It was a completely different shot experience, like Brian says. This one, like you said, rather than the limbs wanting to direct, I guess when you're at full draw, they want to go this way, right? Mm-hmm. Your top limb wants to go up, your bottom limb wants to go down. On this Stratos, your top limb wants to go forward and your bottom limb wants to go forward. And to me, that always helped me promote a better shot under pressure, a better shot in the wind.
Right.
I've always felt like if the bow is directing towards the target, I will aim it better, and I will be better when I am not able to aim as cleanly. It'll help me aim that thing a little bit better. So wind and pressure situations, that's when that's when it goes bad.
Another thing I noticed was like Invicta compared to Stratos as far as aiming. If you go a little bit long in the hold, or like I've been doing a lot of shooting outside in the wind at 50 meters, if you have to get into it a little bit stronger, to kind of get through the shot or to steady you up in the wind a little bit more, it seemed like with the Invicta, when I would get into it a little bit heavier, the bow didn't necessarily, calm down for me as much. With this one here, like I can get into it and the pin or the aiming characteristics don't change at all. Like I can pull pretty hard into it, and like it aims the same.
As you build tension, you don't see a shift in what the bow is doing through your aim point. And that's really confidence building. Like if you can sit there and do that, you can increase a dynamic tension into the release hand or through your bow arm, and the bow still will sit there and do its thing for you, then you can like just continue to build that tension until boom, shot breaks, right? If
just allows you to be patient in the shot.
Right.
Like, you're not trying to rush yourself to get through it because you know a bad result's coming.
Exactly.
As long as you can continue to fire through the shot and get the result you want, then it allows you to stay much more patient at full draw.
Yep.
One of the other main benefits that I think some people will experience and others won't will be because of that mass distribution. You've got more weight behind your hand. You've got the bow that kind of leans a little more back on you from a bare bow, from a raw build standpoint. You can run more front weight, and that's one of the things that I've always struggled with. I'm just not a big framed guy. I always feel like the wuss on the line, running 5 or 6 ounces on the front.
Same here.
And so, with an Invicta, I could get up into the 8 to 10 ounces on the front range, which is about as much as I've ever ran on a target bow. Yep. But I can immediately, like, even when I'm not in good shooting shape, I can go pick up my Stratos. I can start with 10. I can move to 12. I can move to 14. And those are ranges in front weight that I've never been able to shoot. And I'm normally the guy who's in a 37 because it's a little lighter weight, which allows me to get into that 7, 8, 9 ounce range. Because if I'm running a 40, I'm running 4 or 5, and it's just not enough, especially if there's any wind at all at the event I'm shooting. So,
like you said, you can add more front weight, which is really, for guys who don't use a lot, that's really positive because then you can help clean up some of that waggle. You make the bow harder to turn in your hand in the wind. Yep. That's really positive. I have plenty of front stabilizer weight. I think I'm at like 21 or 22 with current Invicta setup. My initial thought with Stratos was, first thing I'm going to do, because I feel like I do need to increase some of that front leverage, but I do not want to add mass weight. I'm just going to drop my rear stabilizer down a little lower. Yeah. And that'll lower that CG and give me a little more plumb bob effect. And I think that's first step. I mean, there'll be, when you get a new bow, it's usually takes a good bit of time till you really feel like you've settled in. And some people never, ever do anything but change their stabilizer setup. I'm really slow to change it. So I'll find the sweet spot, but I mean, that's my first impression is this, even just like I told you today, I set up a production bow, picked it up, and I was like, oh, I can feel this sitting here in my hand, just walking with it. Mm-hmm. Like even flipping it up, stabilizer up along my arm, walking down the hallway, I could feel that difference in weight distribution. So it's real, and I think it's going to be real positive for a lot of people. All right, let's move forward a little bit, or we could talk all day about some of this stuff and, reminisce about old Hoyt Ultra Elites and Pro Elites. But, all right, well, I feel like we definitely need to have a bow in front of us. Jesse, I'm going to grab your 36 here and put it right here like this. So, Brian, we kept a lot of the Hoyt fundamental design features, tech bar, which really does a lot to stiffen the whole system and gives you guys a lot of design freedom. Shoot through riser to help stiffen the riser laterally. What else did you guys have when you're going through Stratos to try to improve riser design?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you're going to notice in looking at the geometries, if you're comparing them, is that Stratos risers are a little bit shorter. When you pair the design of this riser with a 12-inch limb, 12-inch limb actually lengthens the bow a little bit. So what that allows us to do is squat the length of the riser, helps us stiffen the riser, control string position, and delivery. That was a big goal for us in this riser design because we were going to be managing 2 different cam systems. We always have 2 different systems. We don't have 2 different complete design from a design standpoint. Cam systems within the product line. So
and we'll touch on cam system here coming up soon, but anyhow, go ahead with that. One of the things you'll notice is triax is gone. Triax limb pockets.
Yep. So the contact point at the top of the riser, that's simplified machining in that area, and so it allows us to run a much thicker section in that riser. It's torsionally more stable than than what we've had in the past. We've added a Q80 integrate dovetail rest mount, so now you can use the TRI rest on any of these models.
Yeah, standard rest mount, on Invicta we did the 2-bolt system, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And that's made rests like Freak Show QD, which Jesse uses. Super easy to mount up, super stable. You don't have to worry about a rest rotating in and out. Now the integrate system does that in a different fashion, but both effectively very good for the end user.
Yeah. Additional changes, one of the things that we added to these, we've had the Hoyt hard lock mounting system for a few years, where we've got an actual, an integrated quarter 20 bolt that restricts rotation, so you don't have your sidebar mounts disconnect on you. What we've seen over the last couple of years is a migration back to what I'm going to call some more retro stabilization setups.
Yeah, like everyone went to where they had the sidebar mount down on the low rear section. Now, like Jesse, today I saw your bow back up, mounted with the main stabilizer too.
Yeah, I've been running the Invicta with the mount up high. Some people prefer it down low. I just kind of prefer it goes back to that shot experience thing, kind of how the bow reacts on the shot. I think is the biggest part for me. But yeah, I'm running mine up top. Yep.
What we did do to work with anyone that wants to shoot in that position is add that same hard lock feature there, and so now
on the front with the main
on the
bar.
front stabilizer, it wasn't on any of the previous bows, but now if you want to run on the front, you want to run in the rear mount, the rear lower or the rear upper, depending on the bow model you get into, you've got the same hard lock feature locating your sidebar mount system.
Yeah, that's cool. So we've got that. These, like Invictas of the past, they have a stealth shot system. Changed there though with the mounting system, correct?
Yeah, just some minor updates. I mean, just to make everything more stable, more reliable. Two set screws locking that stealth shot bar in. Kind of the same thing within the cable guard bar and the roller system that we'll touch on later between the cams. Just again, reliability, robustness. When you're on the line, you don't have fewer things to worry about.
Right. So moving on. The limb pocket, you mentioned the Trax limb pocket, which was on our bows since 2013, Pro Comp.
Yeah, probably,
similar.
Yeah, it's been even before that. It would,
yeah.
In the Hoyt line, it's been around for probably as long as XT2000.
Yeah, I guess
limbs.
Vantage Elite Plus was there, and well, I'm talking the version that I remember that looks the same. But anyhow, this limb pocket system derived more from like our Venom Pro RX-7 hunting line.
Yeah, it's been something that we've done for a few generations to just remove the the occasional creak and pop, just noise in general, right? We want to isolate as much of that movement and lock it in as tight as possible. So a difference from from our previous limb pockets and target, you're now going to have kind of a dual rocker setup. You're going to notice that there's a Delrin cap that goes on the front of the limb. You're going to have a little bit different rocker setup on the back. But from a contact standpoint, the system assembles very similarly. We call it our zero tolerance limb pocket. It's the same kind of features there where you've got a pocket spacer deck that allows the pocket to kind of press over that. It is an interference fit, so as you back the limb bolt out, you're not going to have any pocket movement at all, regardless of where you shoot the bow. You'll have the same alignment.
And these ones sit wider, correct, than say Invicta?
Yep.
But angle is the same, correct?
Yep, pocket angle on all the bows is the same. Limb angle does play into that. So you've got a wider platform between the pocket and the cam system, which improves stability. You've got a shorter 12-inch limb, which further improves stability. And then you've got the same, you've got the same pocket alignment, center spacer setup that we've had for a number of years. That it's worked. It always has and continues to.
So for 20 years, since 2003, we've ran off of our cam and a half system. And now 2023 Stratos, we've got our new HBT cam, which is a complete shift from everything we've had the last 2 decades. So that's probably the biggest, in my mind, and like what I'm gonna use on this bow, the biggest shift from everything I've had the last dozen years or so, because we've had the SVX and before that Spiral Pro, Spiral X. I've used basically the same cam for 12 years, and now I'm gonna shoot this HBT. So that, Jesse, you've shot it a little bit.
Yeah.
Brian, you've been shooting it. I've been shooting it. I'm super pumped about it. Brian, tell us all about it.
It's a completely different cam system. It's kind of falling in line with where we've been going with hunting bows for the last couple of years, HBX and HBX Pro. So it's a new kind of 2 cam base sizes. One of the things that I think we've had over the years is we've had 2 cam experiences, I guess is a good way to describe it. We've had a spiral style cam, which is SVX today, and we've had a 1.5 cam rotating module. The experience with spiral has always been to maintain what the top level archers like about that. Firm wall, higher holding weights, lower let-off percentages, just higher string tensions, the performance that it provides.
Yeah, a ton of speed.
Yep. What you have on the other side, and 1.5 plus, GTX, X3, all those cams are generally a rotating module, but they're targeted at a little bit different customer. They're smoother to draw. They've got a little, I'm going to say, a little more comfortable wall, a little wider valley, so they're really easy to shoot. But as we evaluated the product for 2023, one of the things that we kind of felt like we recognized was that the difference in those two systems that we've had over the years is almost, I could say, maybe a little bit polarizing. SVX was described as aggressive, even though I don't consider it aggressive by today's standards, but it's got that stigma with it. And then you've got kind of the 1.5 cam system, which is really easy to shoot, tons of valley, but always kind of missing that performance element.
Yeah, they were always a little too far apart for my shooting style to even consider the one. I mean, a long time ago, I had some GTX cams for a little while. They didn't work for my shooting style. Went back to Spiral X, and then just stuck with those through Spiral Pro and SVX. And this one has just like crazy amount of feel adjustability. You can really do a lot with it to get it. For someone like me or like Jesse, I think you're gonna really blur the lines on which cam guys are gonna want to choose, guys and girls are gonna want to choose.
Yep. Yeah, I think the biggest thing to identify with this changing cam system is it really focuses on customization, personal customization to the archer. So some of the key features, it offers 1/4-inch draw length adjustment.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
Very excited about that.
I mean, today we were literally setting up a new bow for Jesse, and while we were setting it up, just started rocking through the draw length range to see what he was really looking for.
How often have you been like, I think I need another 1/2 inch, full 1/2 inch?
Exactly.
It's always less.
Yeah, you have to go 1/2 inch, then you got to start twisting cables and strings, and then you get the poundage off, and you got to back limbs out or take them in, and then it's just so much easier to have 1/4-inch draw length adjustments. That in combination with the grip inserts, I mean, you can get down to 1/8 of an inch pretty easily. So that is definitely a huge plus.
Yep, that was a big focus for us, especially for somebody that's not got a entire bow tech lab in their house or in their garage, right? And they can't just walk out there, drop their bow in a press, measure the draw length, throw it on a draw board, adjust poundage on the scale. Those are, I went through one of those experiences this year trying to prepare for Reading. I was swapping mods and twisting cables, and I've got draw boards and everything I need at my disposal, and I had 3 hours in that process.
Yeah.
And I set these bows up with an HBT cam, and I just put it to my normal draw length. If I want to try a 1/4 longer, two bolts,
2 screws,
a T15 wrench, and I adjust it out. If I want to try it a little shorter again, I'd take the grip inserts that we've had in the series for the last 3 bows, and I'd shorten it 1/8 of an inch. If I want to try the other way, I can shift it up a 1/4. I can put the standard grip back in. When you go from 1/2 inch draw length adjustment all the way down to 1/4 and then down to 1/8, now you can do that at the 50-meter line. As you're shooting your round, you can literally play with exactly where you want draw length.
And the 1/8 inch on the grip, I mean, that does nothing, absolutely nothing to your tune. Sight marks all remain the same. That's really cool. A lot of guys end up going indoor to outdoor. They may shorten up a bit, shooting hills. I hear that from a lot of people, not my experience personally, but they go, we're going to Reading. I'm going to shorten my draw length a touch for those uphill targets out of the canyon. And this makes that, I mean, you could do that on the mountain. You could you could swap the thing right there on the mountain and shoot it. You could tailor your bow for each target. Super simple to do that. No change in tune or sight tape.
Yep.
So that's just that is cool. The 1/4 inch on the mod, that is awesome for me. I'm super excited about that. I don't know that I'll ever use it. I'll probably end up maxing this mod out for my draw length. But like my wife, Linda Choi Anderson, she's high-end shooter, and she's always like, I need to change this. Need a little bit here, a little bit there. She's going back and forth. I mean, I don't know. Sorry, honey. Maybe it's whatever side of the bed she woke up on, but that'll be really, really helpful for her, because to get those little adjustments previously, you're messing with, like Jesse said, the cables. And now your cables are string, and now you're talking there's just a little change in feel or timing, and you've got to get all that back together. And 1/4 inch on 2 T15 bolts on each side, very, very simple. So do you got specs on those? Because we're working with 2 cams. There's 2 cam sizes on HBT.
Yep.
And then 2 modules within each of those.
Yeah, so the bows are going to be offered in 2 individual cam sizes, an HBT number 2 and an HBT number 1. Within each of those cam systems, so I'll just use number 2 for example, there's going to be 2 modules. We're calling those a 2.2 module for the large size, and then a 2.1 for the small. That entire cam system and the number 2 is going to cover a 2-inch range, 2.5-inch range, but it's going to do it between those 2 modules, and both modules come with the bow. So the bow is going to ship with 2.1 installed on the bow, and then the 2.2 mod is going to be in the pack with your grip inserts, ready to rock.
Yeah.
So as you want to adjust draw length and tweak, not only are you doing it in quarters, but now you've got kind of the same way that we ship SVX cams today. We include each module that you're going to need. We're including everything that you need when you get your bow.
Nice. Yeah, 100%. I'm going to be giving this HBT a full trial. I mean, I intend to be using this one. Today we were shooting. You've got the adjustable foot, which you can change not only let off, but you can also swap hard wall to soft wall. So let's start with let off. I mean, that's pretty simple, 65, 70, 75%, all on one screw. You simply unbolt that, move the foot in or out, and you get that number. It's easily marked, identifiable on the cam. Now, hard wall, soft wall, give us the rundown on that.
You know what? Okay. I will say, I think maybe you undersold the let-off feature a little bit.
Yeah,
so
probably.
Maybe I'll reiterate that. Where we've been in the past.
Engineer guy, give us the rundown on the let-off.
Yeah. So where we've been in the past is you either it was again, I used the word polarizing earlier, but you either were in the 65% camp or you were in the 75% camp.
Yeah.
When you look at a 10% change, you're talking 6 pounds in holding weight. Like, there are people who can shoot one side of that and the other, and there aren't very many people who are crossing over in that type of setup. When you get into 5% let off increments, now you're talking 3 pounds, 2.5 pounds, depending on what your max poundage is on a target bow. And now you're in a range where you can actually get a feel in between those two. So you know, I can stand to shoot a 65-pound bow, and now I can go back to 75% module, but maybe on my 60 I'm going to shoot 70. Mm-hmm. Maybe for indoor, and I'm working my way into season, I'm going to shoot it at 50, but I'm going to bump it to 65. Those are 3 categories that help you manage let off. And in a lot of cases, I think people are looking at, you know, how to set up their bow for an entire season. Now you've got the ability to incrementally adjust that as you start up with low poundage, as you prepare for field. Maybe you want to shoot more for 3D. You can adjust that holding weight to match the performance numbers you're looking for.
Yeah, and like you said, people moving from bow to bow, say they're shooting indoor world archery style target, and you're at 60-pound max, right? So they're shooting 58, 59, 60 pounds. Then they go 3D. I know a lot of top shooters end up, they go, hey, I want, you know, a little more speed, or they want to shoot a bigger arrow. They end up in that 65-pound range, like you said. So the key to the feel for a shooter is not the draw weight itself, but what you're actually holding at your holding weight. And one thing we've been talking about, like how that gets measured, there's an ATA standard for how that's measured, and a lot of systems on the market, a lot of the scales that people might use may not be super accurate in determining what that really is in comparison to the ATA standard on how it's truly measured. But you know, if you're using the same scale all the time, you at least get an idea of the difference from one setting, you know, 65, 70, and 75%, one setting to another.
I mean, Jesse's doing the exact same setup, right? You know, we're playing with bows, looking at 3D bows. Yeah. You're running 65s right now. It's not necessarily something you've always done in the past, but
right. Yeah. So like on my SVX bow right now, my Invicta, for 3D I'm running 65 pound, but that puts my holding weight up at, you know, 21, 22 pounds, to where I normally run it at 18 or so when I'm at around 60 pounds. So with this cam, I can order a 65-pound bow because I don't mind backing the limbs out a few turns to hit my target. If I go with the 65-pound, want to shoot it at 60, it doesn't bother me to have the limbs backed out a little bit. But what I can do with this new cam system is adjust my the let off foot on there to where I can get my holding weight the same for both 65 and 60 pounds. So
Yep.
That works out good for me, who if I want to shoot the same bow for ASA or field or whatever, I can do that, keep the same holding weight, and don't have to have two separate bows for that.
Okay, so now tell us about the actual foot of this let off piece.
Yeah, so
how you can swap that from soft to hard.
Yep. So the mod foot's adjustable in and out for let off, but then top to bottom between the cam systems changes the wall feel. So in the there's an arrow system that pairs up with a laser that goes on the foot, and those arrows point out and away from the axle. You're in the hard position, the hard wall position. You can loosen those feet, take them completely off, and you'd move your top foot to the bottom cam and your bottom foot to the top cam. That will change the direction those arrows point on those feet, and at that point your arrows will be pointing in towards the axle, and in that position you'll be in what we're calling the soft setting, but it's still not a soft wall. If you're going to compare wall feel in between the systems that we have today, HBT in both hard and soft is going to be more firm with tons of valley when compared to say a DCX cam today. But it's not going to be as firm when it's hard compared to SVX hard. SVX has still got a firmer wall, so if you're somebody that's shooting 21 ounces on the front of your stabilizer, perfect. Stick with hard.
Now we were talking today, like I said, this is so close to feeling just like my SVX wall. I mean, it is right there. Almost hard to discern the difference between SVX, and I shoot my SVX in the hard position with the soft rubber peg, so it's not quite as absolute hard as it could be. And then this one I had at 70% let off with the feet in the hard position. And I said, this is really, really close. And I really felt like the back end, the way I want it to feel for my shot execution is right there. Like I said, I've never had a non-SVX style cam really tempt me into wanting to shoot it. And this one, I'm there. Like it's giving me what I need to be right there at that SVX feel, and now I know I can go the other way with it should I desire, or should I need just a little bit of easy adjustment. It's that adjustable, change the feel, a matter of a few bolts, nothing else.
I'm right there with you. I've always dabbled around with the other cam besides the SVX or Spiral, and shot it for about 2 or 3 days and always went back to the SVX. But this one here, like, I've been shooting it for quite a few weeks now, and it's got my attention. And just today we was shooting, and I shoot my SVX in the soft setting, and the difference between my SVX 40 and this 36 with the new cam, the HBT, my jaw length, I have to set them a little bit different just because of the geometry of the bow, string angle, and stuff like that. While I was shooting over there today, and like I felt like the jaw length just wasn't quite right. But since I shoot the SVX in the soft setting, this one here is a little bit more firm than that in either setting. All I done was take this mod foot, switch it around from the hard to soft setting, and I was able to expand into my shot a little bit more. So it wasn't necessarily the draw length.
It was just like finishing feel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So just
really
little
cool.
minor tweaks like that you can adjust on the fly. That is just helps that overall shooter experience.
All right. So HBT cam again, all new for this year. Super exciting. SVX cam still available. We don't want to take that option off the table. Just a little minor update to match the width of the new limb pocket, correct?
Yep. I mean, we're still calling it SVX cam because it still exhibits all the same draw force curves, let-offs, features, and performance that you'd expect in that category. We've made that system a little more stable. That's helped us kind of improve tuning between the cam systems, made those work a little in a little better synergy between the bow models. That was one of the difficult things in this project, was managing a cam and a half system with an HBT system and getting all that to mesh on both bow geometries. The engineering team knocked that one out of the park. Did a really good job of getting that put together. So we are, I'm going to consider the SVX wide system, essentially. Draw links and all that matches up the same, but
Same
just
modules as before. Yeah,
Yep.
like consider it really no change. It's SVX as we know it and loved it for years and years. So.
Yep, I will put in a plug here that I do think the SVX cam system has historically carried the stigma that the original spirals had. And from a draw force curve, from a wall feel, a few years ago, with the introduction of SVX, we included what we're going to call a soft wall.
Yeah,
and I think
not the same as what they used to be years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, those old ones were pretty nasty
Yep.
if you weren't prepped for them.
Yeah.
And certain cam sizes could magnify that too. I mean,
for sure.
it's different in my giant cam size, SVX number 5, than what it is in, say, a 2 or 3. That other guys might shoot, and
Right.
and I don't know, it can really change that feel. So that soft option was probably underutilized by a lot of shooters.
For sure. I mean, if I'm just making just a random assumption, I'd say at least 50% of archers, if not higher, should actually be shooting in that soft setting. It widens the valley, and it actually, my style, there's 3 of us sitting here. Jesse and I both shoot in the soft spot.
Yeah, and
You're
I
running
wrap
hard.
mine a little harder, so I
You run
long
more
string
weight.
it effectively to
Yeah.
make it a little more valley and a little more let off. I'm probably like 71% let off with those.
Yeah.
And then a lot of weight on the bow helps. A lot of front weight helps with that too. So
Yes. I mean, if you're an archer that's running, 15, 20 plus ounces, you probably love the hard wall. But if you're a guy like me running 6, 8, 10, 12, that soft wall feature is not really soft. It's just a really comfortable position.
Yep.
Really easy to shoot.
So one of the last things I guess to really go through is looking at this one, which with HBT cams, I see the roller guard. Looking at the red bow behind Jesse, it's got an SVX cam. You see the standard cable slide system. So is that just like a necessity of the cam design?
Yep, it's exactly that. Again, trying to, carrying over, one of those focuses for this project was take what we're doing well with Invicta and SVX cams and just make sure that carries straight over. So in doing that, we're still using the same cam profile and design, but we're using it on a 12-inch limb. In order to make that system changeover work, we had to keep it on a cable slide. So you're going to have the same feel, the same draw cycle and everything, and that was really the only way that we could effectively execute that. With HBT cams, the cams wrap differently. They've got different cable tracks. That cam system just works better with a roller. It matches up with the HBX and HBX Pro that we've had in hunting for the last couple of years. And so we've upgraded that system or updated that system rather to be utilized with a roller on all the HBT bow models.
Jesse, anything else from you?
No, reiterate that, like my shooter experience over the past month and a half or so that I've had some bows to play with has been awesome. Super excited. I think, we've only built on an awesome platform that we already have with the Invicta. The only thing I can see here is just improvements. Some things may be subtle, but, it's all those things that add up to make, to make a great overall system. And with target archers, we're always tinkering around with stuff. This allows this new cam system allows customability, play around with stuff, get the bow to feel exactly how you want it to feel for whatever venue you're shooting. So I'm just overall super excited, not only for myself to shoot one, but for you guys to get one in your hands and try it. We can sit here and talk all day about it, but until you actually get one in your hands and try it, you're not going to know exactly what we're talking about. So
You really got to shoot it.
It's pretty awesome.
I'm excited to bring like the everything I loved about the generations of Hoyt target bows I've shot, some of my favorite bows of the past, and blend those with that improvement we had on shot feel with the Invicta, and just put together a package that I think it ultimately is just gonna help people shoot better.
Yeah.
I think this cam system
It
is
will.
gonna be open the doors for a lot of people who maybe they weren't quite into the SVX spiral system and the previous alternative cam systems, be it DCX or prior, didn't mesh with them. And this cam system is going to be, there's not a shooter out there who can't find a setting in this that will
Yeah.
work for them. I really believe that.
When you get into a 1/4 inch trail length adjustments in the cam,
That's
1/8 inch
awesome.
in the grips, you get into an adjustable wall feature, hard and soft, you get into 65, 70, 75.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got-
and then
got
you
it all
didn't have to
covered.
put that in a press to
Yeah.
do any of it. You
Exactly.
can stand out in your yard and just hammer arrows and try every one of those settings.
You were texting me last night. You're like, this is this and that's that, and it's a picture of arrows in the target.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
changing settings and stuff's just finding the same spot. So yeah, and I think that's the key when you can customize the feel of the bow on the release side for yourself. If you don't have a bow that feels good on the release side, it's maybe even worse than a bow that isn't aiming well for you. I mean, if you can, right? We talked about it earlier. If you can aim it well, you can shoot it well. If you can get the shot to fire.
Yep.
So that's all going to try to work in conjunction. I think we really did a good job of blending those things together.
I agree.
And I think the best thing to do if you're out there watching, I really encourage you, find us at a major event here in the U.S. or international events and come shoot it. We're going to have them at our booth, and we always try to make bows available for you to try right there in the Hoyt booth. So HoytTarget.com, visit your Hoyt dealer, or come find us at a show.